Hi, Liz here from Tutor to You. I'm joined by Lynn today. Hi Lynn, how are you doing?
Hi everyone.
So today we're going to do BTEC National Revision for Unit 1, Human Lifespan Development. Hopefully there's some of you joining us maybe from home or from school or college. To join in, you need to be a subscriber so you can type your answers in the chat window, which Lynn and I can see, and we will give you a shout out if you correctly answer our questions. So I'm just going to load up the PowerPoint now. Okay, so we are going to go through physical growth and development, as I said, and we'll give you some time to think about your answers, type them in the chat as we go through. So let's see where we're going to start. Okay, so our first activity is what's the difference? So in health and social care, there's lots of key terminology that we need to be really secure in our knowledge. So we need to understand what those terms mean and then be able to use them confidently in our exam answers and in our coursework. So on the screen now we have two key things from physical growth and development, which is gross motor skills and fine motor skills. So I want you to think about what is the difference between these two concepts, and if you can, maybe tell me something about gross motor skills and then compare that to fine motor skills. So I'm just having a look to see if anyone is typing any answers. I'm going to ask Lynn to think about this as well so she can talk us through. So let's have maybe 30 seconds of music while we think. Okay, Lynn, I'm going to come to you then. Can you tell me something you know about gross motor skills, Lynn?
Yeah, so gross motor skills, the way I remember it is it's the large muscles in the body. So things like the arms, the legs, the torso, those parts of the body that are gross motor skills. Yeah, so large
Okay,
muscles.
so
That's how I remember that one.
let's have a look. Okay, so movements that use the large muscles in the body, such as the arms, legs, and torso. So these are often full body movements and they're about locomotion. So jumping, running, moving forward, walking, climbing. Okay, so what about fine motor skills then, Lynn?
Yeah, so I always think gross motor skills, large muscles, fine motor skills, small muscles. So that's how I remember the difference. And so your fine motor skills are your smaller muscles that are very much controlled by your brain and your central nervous system. And they are sending signals to your hands, your fingers to do smaller movements. So things like picking up objects and being able to sort of pinch things, for example. So they are your smaller muscles. So that's the
Fabulous.
difference.
Okay, so my definition, small muscles working with the brain and the nervous system to control movements in hands, fingers, and also your lips, tongue, and eyes. Sometimes students don't realise that, but I'm
Yeah,
using fine motor skills now to talk. So there's a
yeah,
coordination between the fine muscles in my face. And then when I'm doing this with my hands, which I do a lot, there's coordination between my brain and the muscles in my fingers. Okay, fabulous. So now I want 3 examples of fine motor skills, but specifically in infancy. And at this point, I would just like to say when you sit your exam and you're reading your exam question, do pay attention to exactly what it's asking you. If it asks you for fine motor skills in infancy and you give ones from childhood, you're not going to get any marks. So really do take your time to read those questions. So we've got 30 seconds to think of this. So if you're watching from school or college or home, please do type your answers in. Otherwise, it's going to be Lynn again.
I'm in
Okay,
the hot seat
here we go.
this lunchtime.
Okay, so I see that Vanessa has given us an answer. She said drawing, writing, and doing up buttons. I would say just be careful, Vanessa, when we're talking about infancy. Remember, that's 0 to 2 years. So think about what infants can realistically do with their fine motor skills. Drawing, definitely. Writing, they're probably giving it a go, aren't they? They might try and do some writing. Doing up buttons, I'm not sure, Lynn, do you think in infancy can we do up buttons?
Probably not at 2, I would say. Probably the ones that Vanessa are pointing towards are a little bit more early childhood, aren't they? Definitely examples of fine motor skills, definitely,
Yeah.
Vanessa. But are they sort of relevant to infancy? I think if I was thinking about infancy, I'm thinking very much about those really early things that a child might do. So maybe even just like putting their hands or their fingers in their mouth,
Yeah.
sucking their thumb, for example, that kind of movement. Even I think because we often forget that fine motor skills is your lips, isn't it, as well? So even like mimicking sounds from a parent, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And then I think the key thing I noticed, particularly with my children, the first thing they really started to do was grabbing. So grabbing hold of something in infancy. So grabbing a toy, quite often if a child's lying in the bath, for example, and you hold a toy in front of them, they're going to try and reach out and grab it.
Yeah.
That's when my children first started to show fine motor skills, I think, at that point.
Brilliant. So let's have a look at what we have on screen. So brings hand to mouth, that's what you were saying, Lynn. So that's a very early fine motor skill. 0 to 3 months, babies will bring their hand to their mouth. Grasping a rattle around 6 months. Banging toys together around 9 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So guys at home, just make sure you've got some examples that are specifically infancy and maybe go for the really early ones so there's no kind of like possible confusion. And then for childhood, choose really childhood specific ones. Okay, let's have a look at our next activity, and well done, Vanessa. Thank you very much. So now I want examples of gross motor skills in infancy. So remember, infancy is 0 to 2 years. So let's go with a 30-second timer. Okay, so I'm hoping Vanessa is going to come up with some for us. Maybe some other people as well that are watching. Lynn, what would you say are some key ones?
Yeah. So when I think about infancy, I sort of think about the stages that are sort of the baby will go through as they develop and the things that they can do. So quite often babies lie on their backs, don't they? And then they lie on their tummies. And when they're lying on their tummies, quite a key gross motor skill is they can lift their head up and kind of look around. So that's probably one of the, a key thing you start to notice. So lifting up their head. Then they might start crawling. We all remember that infants will crawl, don't they? Probably from around sort of about 8 to 9 months, I think they start being able to crawl. And then cruising, where they'll be able to hold themselves up and stand, and then they might start trying to walk. So, and actually Vanessa's just come in, with very similar ones, but also she's added rolling, and that's quite a key thing, isn't it? Everyone kind of cheers for a ball. They can do their first little flip.
Okay, let's have a look and see what we've got. So lifting head, 2 to 4 months, sitting up 6 to 8 months, standing 9 to 12 months. Standing then moves on to cruising, as Vanessa said. And the rolling is kind of in between the lifting the head and the sitting up, isn't it? Okay, brilliant. So let's see what we have next. Oh, I need to warn everyone at home. This sometimes shocks people. There's a bit of a loud noise on this one. Okay, so Captain Riddles, I'm going to give you some clues and you need to guess what the key term is that I am giving you the clues for. Let's go for the first one. Hopefully you didn't have your volume up too loud then. So 3 clues. This is our first one. So this is expected.
Okay.
Next clue. Most children reach these.
Okay.
And our final clue. Skills or abilities. And I see that Vanessa has made her guess, and it's a very good one. She says milestones. What do you think? Oh, and Molly says milestones as well.
Brilliant.
Lynn, what were you thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would just kind of like expand that slightly to be developmental milestones, because they are milestones that you meet in terms, or an infant or a child would be meeting in terms of their development. So developmental milestones.
Yeah, I believe you are all correct.
I think he's going to tell us, isn't he?
Yeah. Developmental milestones. Yeah. So the important thing to remember about infancy and early childhood is that generally we all follow the same stages of development. We all reach those milestones. So we're following the same pattern of growth and development, but we might do it at different rates. So some children might reach a milestone sooner than another. It doesn't necessarily mean there's any issues. But then obviously for some children that have maybe developmental delay or a physical or a learning disability, they may not reach some of these milestones, which is why our clue said most children reach these. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so another what's the difference? I've alluded to this already, but we've got 2 concepts, growth and development. They are slightly different. So Vanessa, Molly, anyone else at home, could you tell me something you know about growth and then something you know about development, so we can make sure we all know how they're different? So I will give you a 30-second timer. Okay, so as we wait for Molly and Vanessa and everyone else at home, Lynn, tell me something about growth.
Yes. Okay. So the way I remember growth is it's something that you can sort of measure quantitatively. So with numbers. So it's, for example, height, weight, the size of a baby's head, for example. So you can get measurements from it. So very much about different aspects of your physical being and how that is increasing in size. Yeah.
So we've got a comment saying from someone, hi someone, growth for the body and development to the brain, how it gets better. Yeah, so growth is definitely about the body and physical quantitative growth, like Lynn said. So let's have a look at my definition on the screen. Helps if I click the right button. So the process of something becoming bigger, so growing taller, gaining weight, increasing head circumference. So it's very much physical and about the body. And then so Molly's saying growth is a measurement, but development is an acquisition of skills.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay. So let's have a look at my definition. So the acquisition of skills and abilities, for example, language development and managing your emotions. So as someone said, it is quite right to say that growth is about physical and body, and development is more about your brain development, getting better at things. Yeah. Brilliant. Well done, guys. So you obviously all know the difference. I think it's time for a round of applause.
And Liz, I would just add, with Unit 1, you often get questions, don't you, that relate to the difference between two things. So it's quite good when you have terms that are used alongside each other quite a lot to know how to describe them and to know the difference. Yeah,
absolutely. And giving examples is always a really good way of showing that you understand something, because we can all recall a definition. You know, you can learn a definition off by heart. It doesn't mean that you understand it, but giving an example shows that you really understand, you're applying that knowledge. Well done, Vanessa, as well, saying development is the acquisition of skills and abilities. Yeah, well done, guys. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Lynn to do this bit now.
No problem. So I'm going to fire some questions at you, Liz, and our guests this lunchtime. So we're going to move on a little bit now and look at, some slightly later life stages. So we've got some true or false questions. So the first one here is the enlargement of the penis and testes happens during puberty. Is that true or false? You could just write in the chat for me a T or an F for true or false. So Molly, Vanessa, someone... what are you thinking? Is the enlargement of the penis and testes, does it happen during puberty? Is that true or false? We've got, Eden's come in, or Lucinda Eden. We've got true. Anybody else want to tell us? Do you think that's true? Molly's true.
I think you're all right. Should we have a look?
What about you, Liz? What would you say?
I think it's true. Yeah. Well done, everyone. Brilliant. Let's have an applause.
Great. Okay, what about this one? Hair growing in armpits and pubic area is an example of a secondary sexual characteristic. So you're thinking now about what you've learned about puberty and primary and secondary sexual characteristics. Is hair growing in armpits and pubic area an example of a secondary sexual characteristic? So we have... Lucinda coming in at true and Vanessa coming in at false. So we've got a bit of a debate going on here. Molly's coming in as true. What would you think, Liz?
I'm going to say this is true. And I guess we could have an extension question here. So for those of you at home, what is a primary sexual characteristic and what is a secondary sexual characteristic?
Nice.
So Vanessa, I think you've confused yourself because you're saying secondary sexual characteristics, yes they are, but you're saying it's false. So we're saying hair growing in your armpits and pubic area is an example of a secondary sexual characteristic, and we're saying yes it is, so it's true.
Yeah. So can anybody tell us the difference between primary and secondary? That's a follow-up question. What are the difference? Quite a common question, actually, I would say. Over the years, I have seen this come up in the Unit 1 exams before.
Yeah. And it
knowing the
can,
difference.
you can get yourself tied in knots about it.
Yeah.
So while you guys are typing at home, I will give you a really simple explanation. So primary sexual characteristics refer to your internal and external genitalia that a child is born with. So in biological males, that's the penis and the testes. In biological females, it's the uterus, ovaries, and vagina. So you're born with them and you need them for reproduction. Then when you go through puberty, those primary sexual characteristics mature, so they grow, they enlarge, and then they start functioning. And then you also have secondary sexual characteristics such as hair growing in your armpits. So Molly has said, yeah, primary, something you're born with. Yeah, secondary, something that develops during puberty. Brilliant, Molly, well done. So let's move on, Lynn, because I think we might have some other questions linked to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about this? Breast and areola development is an example of a primary sexual characteristic. What would we say about that one? Is it true or false?
Okay.
So just pop a T or an F in the chat for us.
We just need to make sure we read the question carefully, don't we? Okay, I can see that Eden and Molly have said false. Someone has said false.
Yeah. So I'm presuming they're saying false because they are secondary sexual characteristics.
Yeah. So
Brilliant.
obviously you know, both biological males and females do have nipples when they're born, most of them, and you have a small amount of breast tissue, but that doesn't develop until you get into puberty. So it's not a primary sexual characteristic. Brilliant. Let's move on to the next one.
What about this one? Changes in larynx causing a voice to deepen is an example of a secondary sexual characteristic. Is that true or false? What do you think? We're on a bit of a roll here with Molly and Lucinda and someone. I'm intrigued to know what someone's called. But yeah, tell us, what about this one? Changes in larynx causing a voice to deepen is an example of a secondary sexual characteristic. What would you say?
We've got a new person, Macy, saying true. Welcome, okay. Macy.
Thank you, Macy.
And Eden and Molly and someone all saying true as well.
Okay, brilliant. Let's have a look. Are you correct? You are, absolutely. They're good examples of secondary sexual characteristics there.
So this does actually happen in males and females, but the difference is more noticeable in a male. So basically the change in the larynx is it grows and that it grows more in males, biological males, and makes their voice deeper. But girls' voices or biological female voices do change in puberty as well. Okay, I think we've got one more of these.
Yeah, so we've got true or false. The menstrual cycle commencing is an example of a process that occurs during puberty. Is that true or false? What do we think? The menstrual cycle commencing is an example of a process that occurs in puberty. Let's give people a minute to type what they're thinking.
So we've got trues coming through. I can see on my other screen.
Brilliant. I think you're a bit quicker on your screen than my screen actually is. Are they correct? Yes. So the menstrual cycle, so starting your periods, is definitely something that occurs during puberty. Okay.
So Eden is saying, doesn't it start from birth? No, it doesn't. During puberty you have a surge of hormones which triggers the menstrual cycle to commence. So when biological females are born, they have eggs in their ovaries, but it's not activated. So puberty is when all these things get activated and start occurring. Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, so slightly different activity now. We've got 30 seconds for you to answer 3 questions, and they actually have different levels of difficulty as rated by our chili rankings below. So you're going to have a mild question, a spicy question, and a hot question, and they are worth different points. So 1 for a mild, 2 points for a spicy, and 3 points for a hot. So see if you could answer these questions. So the first question is, what does the menopause signify? Okay. A slightly harder question is what happens during the perimenopause. And then our hot question is actually what causes the perimenopause and the menopause. So have a go. If you can answer all three of those, brilliant. Put them in your answer and you're, up for winning 6 points. But if you only know one or two, please give us those answers as well. What do we think? The question's very much about the perimenopause and the menopause.
Yep.
30 seconds again.
So type your answers in whenever you're ready. Maybe just put a number 1 and then your answer, number 2, your answer. So we're clear what we're answering.
That's great.
So I'm aware it's not a lot of time to answer so many questions.
No, and we are ramping them up to make them slightly more tricky.
I think Eden did actually answer the first one and then deleted it.
Oh no, Eden, there's no silly answer here. Definitely worth having a try, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Liz, I might ask you, do you want to have a mild, a spicy or a hot question?
I'm going to go mild.
Okay, start with the mild. Yeah, go for it. What does the menopause signify?
Okay, so the menopause signifies the end of a woman's fertility, so the stopping of her periods. So meno means menstruation, pause means stopping. So stopping menstruation, no longer fertile, can't have babies anymore.
Well, that sounds like a lovely answer and very clear. Thank you, Liz. That's good. Are you prepared for a spicy question?
What happens during the perimenopause? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, loads of things happen.
Lots of things, yeah.
So perimenopause is a little bit like puberty. So the hormone levels kind of go up and down. They fluctuate quite a lot, which is why women in perimenopause have various symptoms, which I'm not going to say about because that's probably going to give away another answer in a minute. But yeah, hormones fluctuate. So periods might become intermittent, or they might have long gaps between them. They might become heavier, they might become lighter, shorter, longer. It's very much like when a biological female goes through puberty. You might have a period and then think, oh, that's it now, I'm going to have periods, and then you don't have another one for 6 months. It's because the hormones are fluctuating and they're not settled.
Brilliant. And actually that probably leads us on to the hot question then. So you've touched on that, Liz. What causes the perimenopause and then obviously the menopause?
So yeah, in the perimenopause, that's when, I mean, female hormone levels are never like chill. Throughout the month they go up and down. But then during perimenopause, that all goes a little bit wild and you have quite, big fluctuations, which is why we have the symptoms of perimenopause. Perimenopause can last 10 years. For some people it's less, some people it's more. I think the average age to start the perimenopause is somewhere between 45 and 50. As I said, some people have a long one, some people have a short one. Average age of menopause, I can't remember exactly, is it like 52, early 50s? And the menopause itself is when the hormone levels drop right off, especially estrogen. Shall we check my answers?
Yes.
I feel like highly pressured.
It's very clear to me, and you sound very knowledgeable, Liz, about these different aspects of women's development here. So yeah, brilliant. So just in short, these are quite nice little short answers. So the menopause signifies the end of fertility for women. During the perimenopause, there's a decline of periods as egg production slows down. And like you said, Liz, that's because of the hormone levels starting to reduce. And then what causes it is decline in the sex hormones due to the aging process. So, but thank you for your nice full explanation.
Yeah. So, I think the key thing I didn't say was about egg production slowing down. So, you just don't release as many eggs during perimenopause, which is why women's fertility does decline as she ages.
Good point.
Yeah. So as I said before, biological females are born with all their eggs stored in the ovaries. Your menstrual cycle is what matures those eggs and releases them. When we're in our peak fertility, we're producing one mature egg. sometimes more. That's how we get multiples, but 1 mature egg per cycle. But once we get into the perimenopause, we're not always producing a mature egg every single cycle because we have fewer eggs, our hormones are doing crazy things. And then once you get through menopause, that's it. No more eggs produced, no more periods, no longer fertile.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz. That's really clear, though. Thank you. Maybe watch back this video if you need some extra information about that, because that's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's back to you now, Liz, when we're doing aging.
Okay. So everyone at home, stop making me and Lynn do all the work. Give us 2 physical signs of aging. Let's start a 30-second timer. Thanks, Eden.
Okay.
Right, so Eden says wrinkles and grey hair. Lynn, I'm going to challenge you. How would you make Eden's answers like even better? So if she had this in her exam.
Yes. So I was sort of thinking what causes wrinkles. So maybe the step before that is that the elasticity in your skin starts, isn't it? So your skin sort of becomes a lot softer, and you have a loss of, I think, collagen.
Yep.
As well, and that can result in you getting wrinkles. So sort of like the step that leads to wrinkles is what we see, but it's kind of the process that's going on behind the scenes. And Aidan's actually come back and said that. So lack of skin elasticity, and so has Molly as well, which is brilliant. If we were to take Molly's answer there as well about decreased mobility, I think that's a really good answer as well. And also I'd think, right, what's the step before that then? So what leads to decreased mobility? And that might be that your joints become, the cartilage in your joint starts to sort of wear away. So you've got, it's that connective tissue, isn't it, between the bones starts to sort of wear away, and that can make it more difficult to move. And also I think it can result in shrinking. So that's one thing I would think about. And then also actually just sort of leaving on from mobility, your bones as well, your bone density starts to reduce, doesn't it? So the amount of sort of bone tissue, that's what I'm thinking of, that is in your bones starts to reduce. There's less minerals in those bones. And that can also affect your mobility as well, can't it?
Especially, I said that estrogen levels drop with the menopause. Estrogen is actually really useful and required actually by your body to build up your bone density. So postmenopausal women, so women that have been through the menopause, are more likely to have low bone density because they have less estrogen, which is one of the reasons why hormone replacement therapy is quite useful, because it gives you artificial estrogen in your system and helps your bones to stay strong. Eden has said spinal cord compresses, not your spinal cord, but your spine, like your joints, your vertebrae in your spinal column. So the joints compress, but not the spinal cord. If your spinal cord gets compressed, that can cause paralysis. So we don't want that to happen.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Someone said, this is from me and Angel. We smashed it. Brilliant.
Amazing. Well done.
Let's have a look at the answers on the screen then, see if we were in the right ballpark. Yeah, brilliant. Loss of skin elasticity leading to wrinkles and loss of bone density. So that's the wear to the cartilage, and that can lead to loss of height. And then talking about how that can affect mobility as well is great.
Yeah, I really like the decreased mobility. I mean, I don't like it, but that's a good answer. When you get older, if you don't regularly exercise, if you're not doing resistance training, your bone density reduces and your muscle mass actually decreases as well. Okay, so I'm aware we've just gone a little bit over time, so let's speed through our bubble quiz. It's like a multiple choice, but there could be more than one correct answer. So there could be no correct answers, there could be 1, 2, 3, or 4. So what you need to do is we'll show you the question, type in the chat the letters for the correct answers. So would you like to read them out, Lim?
Yeah, brilliant. So which of these are aspects of physical development in early adulthood? So you could write in the chat A, B, C, or D, and it could be more than one. So we're thinking about physical development in early adulthood. So which
So
of these are you thinking relate to that time? Should we
remember
have?
your age range.
Yes. So
Okay.
I'm thinking it's not puberty because we talked about it
Yeah.
earlier. Maybe not perimenopause because we've just been talking about that happening more in middle adulthood. Molly's smashed it, I think, with A and B. So
Everyone's saying A and B. Yeah.
Angel and whoever else is with Angel. I think what I put, Liz, is it A and B?
It is. Well done, everyone.
Brilliant. So
So a
Pete
round of
Phillips
applause.
is most fertile. What about these then? Similar question, but in later adulthood. Which of these are aspects of physical development in later adulthood? So we've got right to the end of the life stages now. What would you say? A, B, C, or D, or more than one of those?
So we're
Let's know
65
what you think.
plus. Okay, someone's saying A. Straight in.
Aging process. Brilliant.
Should we have a look?
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Aging process.
So
Because
all the others are done.
we've done them at different times, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, number 3. Which of these are the sex hormones involved in puberty? So we actually talked about the sex hormones that are needed to mature those primary sexual characteristics and the secondary sexual characteristics. So we've got B and D, estrogen and testosterone. Are there any others that you would add to that? Or we're just going to stick with estrogen and testosterone? Liz, is there another one that you would add?
Yes, I would add C, which Molly and Eden have said.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well
So
done.
important to remember that all the sex hormones are in males and females, but some are more female and some are more male. So testosterone is primarily a male sex hormone, but females have it as well. Estrogen and progesterone are female sex hormones, but males have a bit of them as well. Okay.
This is what you were trying to avoid telling us earlier, Liz, about the symptoms of perimenopause. So which of these are symptoms, would you say? So when the estrogen levels start to drop, women's hormones are sort of going all over the place and they have some of these symptoms. How many of them would you say women experience? I'm sure you've come across some of them in your studies. Tell us what you think in the chat.
I personally think it's all of them.
Yeah, I think you might be right. None of them sound that great, do they?
No. Yeah, everyone's saying A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
all of
sadly,
them.
it is all of them.
That's really good. Yeah,
Well done, everyone. Okay, that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We've had a good time. Well done to Molly, to Cert One Drivers and Angel, Eden. Who else did we have? Someone. Vanessa.
Vanessa started us off, yeah.
Yeah. So I am doing Unit 2 at 1:30 today. If any of you guys are doing Unit 2, please join me. We are on tour for the next 2 weeks after today, and then we're back beginning of December for more live streams.
Nice.
So do check out our website. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye and see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.